Dear taxpayers of Gloucestershire, you have been duped. Do you have a relative in need of care? Do you have children at school? Do you curse the potholes on your local streets? Gloucestershire County Council are cutting budgets on all of that, but they have been spending many extra millions of your money on a super expensive, toxin-creating, air-polluting, climate-changing, landscape-spoiling incinerator that we don't even need. If you've heard of the waste incinerator at Javelin Park, you've probably been told it's good for Gloucestershire. You've been told it's better than landfill, that it saves money, that it supports county recycling, that it would cost too much to cancel, that it is a done deal. Maybe you've seen those cranes at junction 12 of the M5 and you believe that we're too far down the line to stop now. All of this is not true, but it has been repeated so many times, over and over by council spokesmen, that it has come to be accepted, and you couldn't question it. Why not? Because the incinerator contract with developers Urba Sabal for BT was kept secret by the council. It was kept secret even from most of the councillors. This contract is the largest ever signed by the council. It's worth over £500 million over 25 years. And strangely, it was signed before the planning decision was made, without being seen by any but a few select members of the council's cabinet, a small ruling committee of Conservatives. The planning committee voted unanimously against the incinerator, which, if built, will be huge, taller than Gloucester Cathedral and twice the overall size, hardly a pleasing welcome to the Cotswolds. Over 4,000 letters of objection from the public were received, but strangely, central government overturned the vote, allowing the deal to go ahead. Angry locals demanded to see the contract, complete with key figures. The council refused. The government's information commissioner assessed the case and ordered the council to release the figures. The council refused. 2 years after the initial inquiry, a tribunal judge ruled that the council must, in the public interest, release almost all of the figures, and indeed should have done so when first asked. So now we know. We know that the contract does not save money. To even make that claim, it compares only to landfill and speculates on energy prices and waste produced in 20 years' time. Expert analysis shows that the truth is exactly the opposite. Using this incinerator will actually cost the public £4.7 million more per year over the next decade than simply using the nearest available alternative incinerator. And if that alternative were a recycling plant instead, twice as much could be saved, freeing up many more millions for frontline services like schools, roads, housing and social care that desperately need that money. We know that the contract doesn't support recycling. It has a bring or pay arrangement, which means the council must provide a certain fixed amount of waste at a very high price, or pay that amount anyway. This discourages recycling, because recycling instead of burning would be an extra cost on top. Then, after those fixed amounts, the price drops to very, very low, pricing recycling completely out of the market. So the contract is both too expensive and too cheap. This is not only bizarre, it may well be illegal, and a complaint is currently being investigated by the Competition and Markets Authority. If that complaint is upheld, the contract could become void. We also know that cancelling the contract would not cost anything like the £100 million claimed, probably only a third of that, much of which has already been set aside for the project anyway. We know that the contract has a clause for voluntary termination, meaning that the council can still choose to cancel now, and would be much better off in the long term if it did so. And we knew all along that incineration isn't better than landfill, and it is not the only alternative to landfill, or even a particularly good alternative. It simply causes a different, more dispersed but equally problematic form of pollution. It exacerbates climate change. It generates deadly toxins. It fails to treat waste as a resource, something we must all understand in a world where resources cannot be mined forever. Incineration, just as much as landfill, leads to more extraction, more consumption, more waste. Indeed, our UK waste regulations require councils to recycle where they can, so the contract could be illegal on those grounds too. But while it remained secret, it was hard to argue with the Council Cabinet's continued claims that it was a great deal for Gloucestershire, and so excavation was begun at the site, enabling the Council Cabinet to now claim that work is too advanced to stop. But if we, or indeed the full Council, had seen and understood the contract before, it's likely that works would never have been allowed to start. It all begs the very big question, why? Why was this huge contract signed before a planning decision was even made? Why was such a vast amount of taxpayers' money, our money, contractually agreed without scrutiny? Why was such a terrible deal concocted that it had to be kept secret all this time just in order to allow it to go ahead? Why have council spokesmen like Leader Mark Hawthorne and Deputy Leader Ray Theodolou repeatedly failed to answer questions clearly, dismissed all legitimate concerns as political stunts, and continued to peddle the same few untruths to press and public? Who benefits? Let's be absolutely clear. It's certainly not you, not us, the taxpayers and residents of Gloucestershire. This project could threaten our health and that of our livestock and communities. It threatens our landscape and it threatens our climate. And it does all this by digging deep into our pockets. And the council are supposed to work for us. Is there a missing ingredient somewhere? Some conflict of interest? A growing number of us are determined to challenge this madness, and given that all official channels have been tried, we're now prepared to make peaceful mischief to get our voices heard and provoke some meaningful dialogue. We have the facts on our side. Go to Cancel the Contract, a Facebook page for collective action, if you would like to know more about our activities. For more background information, go to glosvain.info, glosvain.info. And if you would like to see the expert report analysing the contract, go to communityr4c.com. And while we're on the subject, if Messrs Hawthorne and Theodolou are watching this, please stop talking complete rubbish. You keep saying that Community R4C didn't bid for the waste contract many years ago. Of course Community R4C didn't bid. It only came into existence in 2015 as a community-funded rival project because so many locals were so pissed off about the incinerator. It was a response to the question, why are you objecting when you're not offering an alternative? But your contract has now been revealed to be so thoroughly anti-competitive that it bulldozes all alternatives out of the market. No wonder it's probably illegal. It's a bit like your voting policy in council. You claim that countless challenges to this project have failed. Yes, there are locals who have resigned themselves to this incinerator, given up in exasperation, exhaustion and growing cynicism, who look at the cranes at Javelin Park and think it's all over now, because that is what you want them to think. But that says nothing about the merits of the project and everything about the number of Conservative councillors too scared to break ranks at a council vote. I know there are plenty of Conservatives who don't want an incinerator. You know it too. Even the Taxpayers Alliance are up in arms about it because it's such a rotten deal. Something that genuinely stands up to challenge doesn't continue to be challenged, time and time again. That happens because those challenges are not satisfactorily answered. You have an opportunity here. You could admit you made a huge and terrible mistake, that you were taken in by the persuasive tones of a huge international construction conglomerate that signed 59 other multi-million-pound contracts the same day it signed yours. You could admit that really you don't know much about these incredibly complex contracts, and you've been hanging on for dear life in fear of being sued if you let the cat out of the bag. You could treat your electorate with respect and refuse to lock us into this cash-hungry, waste-hungry beast for the next 25 to 30 years. You could inspire us by investigating ways of doing something different, something that frees up cash for where it's really needed, something to make us grateful, not resentful. You could be trailblazers, taking the opportunity to go for innovative, flexible, environmentally friendly options and much, much more recycling, something all councils will have to do sooner or later. You could sleep better at night instead of falling asleep in important meetings. Oh, God. Thank you very much